ho. Merry Christmas. Wait a second. This is a little bit. This is going to be a relatively short video today. But I thought I'd do a little something. And what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to do shadows and stuff. Okay, so in this sequence, we obviously have no backgrounds. But that's the action we got going on. So this shot repeats itself quite often. Obviously, there's lip sync involved. So it makes sense. The first step would be to hit, in my case, I've got the hotkey Control-Shift down arrow, which is to turn this into a sub-X sheet. And let me see if it keeps, I think it keeps all the, yeah, it keeps all the pacing of it the same. So technically I could take these frames and cut them out and it wouldn't make any difference. But so anyway, I'm going to go down now, Control down arrow. And again, these are not baked in hotkeys with Opentoonz. You have to set them yourself via File, Configure Shortcuts. Okay. So the reason I did that is if you're going to have one shot and you're going to add a bunch of layers to it, which in this case shadows, the lip sync, I'll probably do the lip sync here in this in the sub-X sheet, although it's not ridiculous to think that maybe what you would do is do the lip sync right here in the main X sheet and then collapse it into a sub-X sheet so that you got the other characters in the scene for timing purposes. But you can always change your mind by going explode the sub-X sheet, which takes all the levels that are in the sub-X sheet and explodes them back out into the, let's call it the parent X sheet. My martini. It's martini time. Okay, so the question becomes, how do you do shadows? Well, there's actually a bunch of ways, and I have a favorite way that I will share shortly, except I need to change that. Okay, that doesn't want to color in. Well, this is kind of typical with Opentoonz with vectors, because these are vector outlines, and as somewhat expected, the vector outlines have turned out to be a bit of a stinky pants. They show as being fillable, and by the way, I don't have a proper pupil color for her eyes yet, so we might as well do that. So I'm going to worry about this later. I don't care, because I can always convert the vector level to a Toonz raster level if I need to make it easier to work with. The salient question at this point is how to do shadows. So I'm going to actually review a few different ways to do shadows. The most traditional, let's say, anime way to do shadows would be to take the flesh tone, and let's go ahead and create the shadow tone. Okay, so let's go Control C, Control V. So I copied that color. Then I'm just going to make it a little darker, like that. Okay, so the traditional way to do it would probably be to go like something like this. Okay, which of course screws up all the filling, which is so true like every time with Toonz vector levels. So I like the Toonz vector levels for, you know, the way you can edit them after the fact. I like the way we can have these vector brushes. So we go from this, which is the standard vector lines, to more like this, which has a sketchy look to it. The problem is, so much of the time, it works great until it's time to deal with fills, and then everything falls apart. So I will say that that's completely normal. I expected that. And I'm going to go ahead and clean it up. I'm going to convert this to a Toonz raster level. clean up all. I'm just going to do it. Okay, so now this is interesting. Did it convert it to a Toonz raster level or not? I'm going to hit the C key. Yeah, it didn't. Okay, so, and I'll bet you that's not undoable. Undo, 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 undo. Maybe? No. It's not undoable. I think the solution might be here. Yeah, vectors to Toonz raster. Let me try that one. I think I have to select the actual cell. Yes. Vectors to Toonz raster. Boom. Okay, that did it. Kinda, sorta. So now what I need to do is extend these down. And I probably have to, yeah, I have to copy these down. So let me go ahead and do that just so I'm not sort of fighting this every step of the way. Fortunately, like I said, it's all one drawing. And I can do the lip sync later. Okay, so that's cool. So now if I want to, I can keep the vectors around. I don't know why I would want them, but what the heck, it can't hurt to keep it handy. I think what I'll do is take this column and just move it down here out of the way. I'll put it way out of the way. Like, I'm going to forget it was ever there, but you never know. It might come in useful for some silly reason. So now I expect, yeah, as expected, now all of a sudden filling becomes a dottle. Everything works great. Okay, so now we're back to the original question. How do you do shadows? The most obvious way to do shadows would be the way I described a moment ago, which is you would, and actually I'll show you two different ways. Let's go ahead and create another color and make it bright red, and then turn on this setting called Auto Paint for Lines. Okay, so Auto Paint for Lines says that if I go ahead and draw a line here, and then I fill it with a shadow color. Okay, well, what was supposed to happen? Obviously, I didn't close it, so let me redo that line. Actually, I'm going to use the arc tool. The arc tool is a little more controllable for this sort of stuff. So I'm going to go, boom. Oh no! You see what's going on here? Even in the Toonz raster level, the arc tool is acting funky, and I know why. It's because for some reason the arc tool has a problem with my drawing tablet. So that's okay, because the arc tool is also very amenable to being used with a mouse. So I'll just use a mouse for this. That's fine. So I'm going to click, click, and go like that. Okay. Now if I take the shadow color and fill it, the red line, boop, will disappear. That's what Auto Paint for Lines is for. It basically allows you to go through your whole shot and just put in all your shadow lines. Hello? Oh, I'm sorry. I keep making mistakes here. I need to hit the G key, so I'm using the arc tool. Okay. And then you can go in and hit the fill tool and do that. Now, would it not be, you might argue, wouldn't it be just as easy to use the color that you're going to use as a shadow, kind of like this? Something of this nature. Of course, I need to get that one. Hold on. Bam. Okay, and then fill that. You could, and obviously you see a little bit of a issue. And the other problem there, I shouldn't say problem, the other thing you could do is just use the paintbrush tool to paint in the shadows as well. Okay. Now I'm kind of putting myself at risk here because I'm doing stuff that the shadows I'm drawing for demonstration purposes I don't necessarily actually want in this shot. Okay. So I'm going to hit Control Z a few times and just undo all this stuff. Okay. But that is the kind of the traditional anime way to do shadows. Now I'm gonna demonstrate a couple other ways to do shadows, both of which involve putting your shadows on a completely separate level. So I'm gonna hit the B key, and I guess we'll use, yeah, I don't want to use that because I want it to be solid black. So let me see, maybe this? No. Yeah, that might be okay. Tell tell you what, let's not do that. Let's use a Toonz raster level. It'd be a little easier to control. Actually, yeah. If I use a Toonz raster level, I'll be able to do it two different ways. Okay, so one way would be to maybe take the paintbrush or the drawing tool and literally just draw in your shadow areas like this. Okay. Now obviously that's pretty awful looking. But again, for demonstration purposes, it will suffice. Because what I'm going to do is, you'll see here in a second. Kind of just get them in there. And then because it's a Toonz raster level, I can take the alpha of this level and do like that and just dial it in that way. So the obvious question that arises is, what about when you want to be certain that you don't do that and go outside the lines? There's two ways. One, let's just pretend we wanted shadows there, even though I actually don't. And then I'll just erase back into it here to clean up that edge. Okay. All right, so this is your problem area. There's two ways to do it. One would be to go into the schematic. Here's the schematic view. And in the schematic, you want to switch it to the effects schematic instead of the stage schematic. And then what you're going to do is you're going to say, okay, so here's column 1 and column 3. And what I am going to do is I'm going to add an effect to column 3. And I haven't done it this way in a while, so I might have my levels backwards, but we'll switch it if I get it wrong. So I believe what I want is multiply INO, foreground and background. Okay. Yeah. Is that correct? Yeah. And then you click this little selection that says clipping masks, so it actually uses the background image as a clipping mask for the foreground image. Now you say, well, wait a second, nothing appears to have changed. Well, you only see that when you render. See, so when I switch it into the preview mode, what Opentoonz calls preview mode, I call it render mode. It is properly clipped. Okay, so now you say, well, okay, but is there a better way? I think there is. And the better way is to actually use the plastic tool, believe it or not. If I use the plastic tool and create a mesh on my character, it doesn't have to be a real fine, detailed mesh. Just create a mesh. Okay. Now, if I once again grab this schematic, you can see that the plastic tool is influencing the column that has the drawing of her. Well, if I take this shadow layer and feed it into the plastic tool as well, at least the last time I checked, something strange is going on here. Well, of course, that's what happens. You go to show something on YouTube, something you've done 100 times, and all of a sudden it doesn't work. It might be because, I wonder if I actually need the, to build the skeleton and stuff. Let's do that. Let's just go ahead and build a simple skeleton. We'll just say, I mean, theoretically, is it possible that we would want to have that skeleton? Sure, why not? And then I'm going to hit the animate tool and just see if that's working. Yeah, it does seem to be working. Yeah, it's because we're in preview mode. That, again, is what the problem is. Okay, so that's fine. I didn't actually want to animate it, so I'm going to leave that alone. But, yeah, okay, so this is one of the idiosyncrasies of the plastic tool. The clipping doesn't seem to actually get invoked unless you have added the skeleton. Weird. Alright, I'm going to go here back to the schematic and look at this. Okay. So if I take this column and feed it back, not into the plastic tool, but rather, you can see that the shadow reappeared. Now I've used this technique before. Now you can see it's clipped, but I do want to add that I've never noticed this before, but this may be a flaw of this technique. Is you can see it actually does still bleed a little bit. Not sure why that would be. I think what we should do is start over. Let's get rid of the plastic tool. And sorry, we want that to be on top. Okay, so let's try it again. Plastic tool. X key, create a mesh. Let's crank up the detail. Oh, there's the problem. Mesh margin. I wonder what that really ought to be. I wonder if this has an effect on that. It does. Tightens it up. So let's use that. But let's make it a little finer. I don't know, maybe we can get away with 3. Let's see. Nope, I think it needs to be either 2 or 1. Okay, so that's just something to be aware of. You can see, and it makes sense that the mesh would bleed over the top of the drawing a little bit. You would probably want that. So I wonder if it'll go to 1. It doesn't seem to want to. It seems like 2 is as small as it gets. So now we'll test this again. Did we create our mesh? My bad. I forgot to hit apply. So I've applied it. And now let's see what happens if we feed this into there. Okay, so as you can see, the shadow area did not disappear. So it does appear to be the case that you do have to go ahead and add a skeleton. Kind of strange, not sure why that would be, but no harm, no foul, as they say. It's not really a problem to create a skeleton. And I'm going to go into animate mode. Okay. As soon as I went into animate mode, the shadow disappeared. So that was the behavior I was looking for. Okay, so that's my little kludge, in that I'm actually using the plastic tool's clipping of my character to fake masking for my shadow layer. So that's cool. I wonder if this is going to be useful. Probably not. Yeah, it was definitely not my intention to use the plastic tool for anything other than the shadow masking, actually. So now I can go back into this layer. That took a little longer than we really wanted. But one problem we're going to bump into is this. The current tool cannot be used on a mesh deformed level. Okay. So therefore, what you really need to do is go back in here, take that back out, and let's see if it'll accept it now. Let's take the P. Yeah, now it will. Normally what happens is if you need to make adjustments to your drawings after you've added the plastic tool, the way you do it is by operating on the drawing itself. Of course, that's kind of difficult in a case like this because you really need to see the original drawing. But again, I can just disconnect it, if you will, from the plastic tool. And that's one of the reasons why I've said in other places I like the schematic view in Opentoonz. A lot of people seem to struggle with a schematic. I find it really useful. Maybe I just got used to it using Blender or something. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make that a little bigger and then erase back into this. So again, I don't know for sure if I'm going to keep these shadows. I'm kind of spitballing here, making this up as I go along. I don't think I want the shadows there. So the other good thing about this technique also is if I want to, I can kind of do the opposite and add highlights as well. So, you know, the anime style highlights on her hair are going to be just fine. Okay. And you could do as much as you want. I mean, the point is that you have the ability to dial up or down the alpha of the level you're working on. So, let us continue. Control CV, and I'm going to make these kind of a purple color. Turn down the size a little bit. And turn the alpha up. Wait. Sorry, I changed the value, not the alpha. Now, frankly, that wasn't necessary. I could have done it as a shadow layer, which is in a way more interesting because you could have multiple layers of shadowing that are different densities, if you will, opacities actually. So let's just say we're going to go like that. Alright. We'll clean that up all, because obviously the addition of black, so to speak, to the existing color, which is purple, is going to result in an apparent darkening of the purple. So, what the heck? Yes, technically we need to go like that, though, don't we? Okay. So, as long as I'm here, clean this up. And I don't mind taking the time to sort of do a better job of cleaning it up, because P key. Remember, I'm not using the brush tool. I'm using the paintbrush tool. The paintbrush tool is for painting areas of color, not lines. The brush tool, generally speaking, is for doing lines. And you do introduce problems if you use it, shall we say, inappropriately. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put that about, there. And then the cool thing is we can just go Control C, Control V, and make this one a little more dense. Okay, so I didn't actually want that line, but what I do want is an additional line of shadowing here. And like I said, I'm spitballing, meaning I'm kind of making this up as I go along and trying different things, and I may change my mind. I may decide I want to backpedal. Okay, so here I'm going to go ahead and hit undo a couple times. What I want to do here is, actually I wonder if I can use this color. Nah, that's not really happening either. I want to go Control C, Control V, and make this fully white, like so. Yeah, because we want that. We're trying to get that glassy look in her eyes, and I think we should go back in here, and I guess I'll use the paintbrush. Can I do fills? I guess I can't do fills, so I have to go into the main drawing, not the X sheet, in order to do this part. Okay, but that's okay. So now we've got these other layers of shadowing and coloring, which look pretty good. And if we feed the hello, go ahead and feed the shadow level back into the X sheet, we get that masking that we were after. So that looks pretty good. I think once the background is combined with it, I think it'll be happening. So how we do? 25 minutes, so we're almost at the half-hour point. Time for a sip of my martini. Okay, so let's go ahead and move this over there, just for organizational purposes. And then what we're going to want to do is take these two levels, and obviously we need to copy them down here as well. So, and then we'll worry about the lip sync later, because we haven't even recorded the voices yet or anything. In fact, I'm not even sure we're totally settled on what the dialogue is supposed to be. We know basically what kind of thing she's saying, but exactly how she says it is not determined yet. Okay, so as long as we're having fun with this shot, why don't we go ahead and stay down in it, and let's go ahead and let's deal with the background. Okay, so in my case, you can't, oh, my nose itches for some reason. You cannot see me doing this. But, and by the way, you're probably really enjoying this video today for the simple reason that I'm not ranting about stuff like Blender. Okay, that is family videos. Alright, I want to go into anime. Hello. Look at that. There's a video of me and my parrot Zuko. I should say our parrot Zuko. It's really Valerie that drove the parrot thing, since she's kind of the bird person. Alright, images, backgrounds. I want the Buddhist shrine defocused. Okay, there it is, so I don't need to belabor things by showing you that. I just need to drag the sucker in here, and I want to go load. I always load background images. I never import them. Okay. Now, I will say that generally speaking, this probably looks okay, because if the whole thing was color corrected down, well, you know what, let's check it out. It's not going to hurt to check. So let's just take this, and what we're going to do is we're going to take this whole X sheet and add a image adjustment. And I believe adjust levels is the one that I've tended to use a lot, because it makes it easy. And by the way, you have to be in preview mode or you don't get to see what's going on. Okay, so I basically darken everything. Okay. And then, what did I do? Did I clamp the blue input? Yeah, maybe. But something of that nature would be okay. The only thing I don't like about that is that it seems like maybe the highlights would want to be a little more aggressive. Yeah, I definitely don't want to do that. So we'll kind of do something like that and call that good. Except we won't. Okay. What are you talking about, Dave? Well, I need to go back and look at my overall plan, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to disable that. The only reason I'm doing it, so it's in there if I want to use it. I don't have to use it. But the reason I'm not doing it is because I think I'm going to want to add this color correction to this X sheet, the containing X sheet that has all the different shots that are in the sequence. Because I want to give them all a unified color correction for the most part. So, with that in mind, all I'm doing right now is I'm going through and deleting these erroneous frames. I find it helpful if I'm doing a sequence to have it go column, 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 like that. The levels, they kind of go in sequence here. It's just easier to wrap your head around what's going on in the shot. So, and I had said in an earlier video that one of the things I plan to start doing is leaving the color basically as if it was daylight and full, rich, flesh tones and all the rest, not bake color correction into the individual scenes, because invariably it seems like I always need to go in and add some color correction after the fact anyway. So I'm just seeing where a little bit of tweakage here could be useful. As far as the eyes go, actually it probably should be dialed back a bit. And remember, I may go in and I need to consult with the director, also known as Valerie, on the actual exact color for her eyes, because I am not certain that I've got this color correct. But wonderful thing about Opentoonz, okay, actually, wonderful thing about Opentoonz is that you can change the colors after the fact, so it's no big deal. Right? Right. So, with that, I think this shot probably can be considered done, other than the fact that I need to give this girl a mouth. So let's go click here and hit insert. And the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to create a Toonz raster level. I'm just going to do this in the simplest way possible, which is to grab, okay, the simplest way possible requires, by the way, that I take the plastic tool out of the equation completely. So there's the plastic tool, the mesh, if you will. Okay, that just allows me to go in and edit these pictures without having to jump into the drawings themselves. Okay, so now I'm going to hit the S key and I'm going to grab this. I'm going to hit Control X, and I'm going to come here and I'm going to hit Control V. Okay, and now just for completeness, it would probably be prudent to fill. Okay, that's not what I wanted to do. To fill that and actually, oh, that's the shadow layer. Okay, yeah, I should erase this. Okay, cool. Now when I turn that back on, she once again has her mouth. Obviously we need to bake a shadow into the lower lip. Not a big deal to do that this minute, but that pretty well gets us to where we want to be. Now we can animate her mouth at our convenience, and we can save that, and we will move on to this guy. And for him, I'm going to do the same thing I did before, which is create a sub-X sheet. And also, as I did before, I'm going to delete those frames just so I can kind of see realistically what's going on here. I don't remember if I used that shot more than once. So I know I'm not using it here. So I know I can delete that. So what I want to see, okay, so this is the shot of her. And oh, there it is. So actually, these can be deleted. And then from here to there can be deleted. And turns out all the way down to here can be deleted. So from there to there. Cool. Now we're just organized properly. We can at a glance see what's going on. And of course, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll open a big X sheet in one of the other screens so I can really see it, right? Okay, so there's an X sheet. And the only thing I do need to do, just as a matter of due diligence, is go back here and feed Akari and her shadow into, and frankly her mouth, I should feed her mouth, all back into the mesh of the plastic tool, which once again enforces the clipping. So we're good to go. And that is it for now. if I can find the stop button.